Hey, in this video, we're going to talk about the impact of the Renaissance on, especially on science. A lot of people talk about the Renaissance and really explore the art and paintings and sculptures and architecture that come out of it. And that stuff's great, but it's not really my thing. And so we're really going to delve into a little bit of the science and you know, issues with that are going to spring out of the Renaissance. Um, One of the big things that's going to be somewhat revolutionary during this time period, the Renaissance starts around 1400s and it stretches into the 1700s. But a big thing prior to the start of the Renaissance, a lot of people held the belief that all knowledge that we have is, remember in Europe, a lot of people are Christians at the time. A lot of people held the belief that all knowledge that we have as humans is revealed by God and that came through texts from the Bible. And so we don't have any knowledge that comes from outside of the Bible as far as the natural world goes. And there's an argument that you cannot add new knowledge because God reveals everything that we need to know out of the Bible. And the Renaissance, you're going to see people step away from that. There are humanist scholars that want to broaden this idea. They want to see a new exploration of science based on learning by observation and induction. Um, we want to go beyond learning about religion. We want to educate more people. One of the big things that pops up in a limited scope during the Renaissance is that some of the people that are running around there even want to educate women. Not a lot, most people don't, but there are some advocates for the education of women during this time period. But as far as science goes, we're going to see some disputes with the church, with the Catholic Church especially, and somewhat with the Protestant church, uh, or churches. Uh, so we're going to see sort of an engagement of discoveries in medicine, natural science, and even astronomy. Those things are going to be explored. Now, a big thing, and I've kind of mentioned this before, the notion that the world is round had been accepted for a long time. It had been proposed all the way back in 500 BC by a guy named Pythagoras. He argued, based on observation, that the moon is round, and it would make sense that the earth was round as well, because it would be kind of weird if the moon was round and the earth was flat. What kind of sense is that? It doesn't jive. Uh, a little bit later than Pythagoras, in 350 BC, Aristotle supported that the Earth was round, and he even came up with proof. He argued that constellations change their appearance as one travels further and further from the equator. And so, based on his argument, he's saying, hey, I'm proving that the Earth is round by observation and inductive reasoning. The big thing that we're going to run into, though, is with Copernicus. Copernicus lives from 1473 to 1534. And he's going to shift the argument even more. So most people have accepted that the world is round, even though today in 2019, for some reason, there's a segment of YouTube that thinks that the world is flat, and some of those people argue that. I'm not sure where they're coming from. But uh, Copernicus is going to push the argument a little bit further. He is going to argue that not only is the Earth round, we've already accepted that. Copernicus is going to argue against some suggestions in the Christian Bible that the Earth is not at the center of the universe. It's been argued before, and in the Bible, there are some suggested passages that would lead you to this idea that, you know, the Bible and other people have argued that the Earth is at the center of the solar system, at least, and at the center of the universe, and everything revolves around the Earth. And to be fair, that does seem kind of, from a limited perspective, it does seem kind of logical. If you go outside, from your point of view, the sun travels across the sky. The moon follows the sun, and the moon is orbiting the Earth. The sun's orbiting, the sun might be orbiting the Earth as well. So, it's not, but, based on limited observation, you can kind of see where they might, get that idea. And so it's not completely out of order. But in 1543, Copernicus is going to publicly publish a book that argues that the Earth revolves around the sun. The sun is at the center of our solar system, and the Earth revolves around it. And initially, the church doesn't really take too awful much note. He publishes uh, that argument, and it's initially even accepted in some Catholic universities. Some Catholic universities are teaching this idea. Not proven just yet, but they are teaching this idea. So the church doesn't really take a whole lot of note of it. What happens, though, is, and we have this idea that, the Catholic Church immediately decries this and bans this idea. They don't. The Protestant side of Christianity, they're going to jump on this idea and start decrying Copernicus and saying that he was absolutely wrong. This is counter biblical knowledge, and so we are not going to accept this new science, this new arguments. And after seeing a little bit of how much attention that the Protestant church is getting, the Catholic Church later on kind of follows the Protestants, actually. And so they banned Copernicus's book, De Revolutionibus, and that's so that they were kind of playing catch up a little bit to the Protestants. The big issue, though, later on after Copernicus is Galileo, and Galileo was born a little bit after Copernicus's death, 1564 to 1642. He starts building on Copernicus's ideas. And the big thing that gets Galileo in trouble is that he is a Catholic, but he's trying to mesh these two ideas. He's trying to make his, science fit in with his religion, and that's possible. And Galileo is successful in doing so to a degree. But Galileo writes a letter, and this letter gets discovered, and this is what kind of gets him in trouble. But he writes this letter to a Grand Duchess, and in this letter, he has a really, really cool line. He says, because remember, the Bible has some passages in there about the Earth being the center of the universe, and the Earth is immovable. And so Galileo is basically responding to that and says that Scripture is meant to tell us how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go. And so he's arguing basically that the Bible is awesome for spirituality and saving your soul and getting to heaven. It doesn't quite jive with science sometimes, and that's okay from Galileo's point of view. And, he makes some continued arguments and publicizes these arguments that no, the Earth is not the center of our solar system. The sun, in fact, is. And that contradicts a lot of church-held beliefs at the time. Church-held beliefs that, the Earth is the center of our solar system. And, like we saw earlier a bit with the Black Death especially, that's considered heresy. You're going against church teachings. And so that's considered heresy. Luckily, Galileo is arguing that a couple of centuries later than other people that have been convicted of heresy that were burned at the stake. And so he's gonna, squeak by with some punishment, but not a lot, not as bad as it could be, I suppose. But he's summoned to Rome, and he is put on trial. This is an inquisition. And he claims to not have fully endorsed Copernicus's views. He says, hey, I'm just considering all of the options. I didn't endorse that completely. But he's trying to get himself out of trouble. He absolutely did endorse Copernicus's views in his published works. And so he absolutely did that. He's found guilty and he's convicted on suspected heresy. And he is also required, which he does because, hey, he's going to get in trouble if he doesn't. He is required to curse and detest the Copernicus view that the Earth, that the Sun, sorry, is the center of the solar system. So he's put on house arrest at his home in Florence, and he remains there until he dies in 1642 at 77. Like I said, this is a pretty light punishment for somebody convicted of heresy. He does have to stay in his house. He has to recite 7 psalms a week. Sorry, but this is so light that his daughter Marie Celeste later on gets permission by the church to do those recitations for him. Uh, and while he's under house arrest, he's going to take advantage of that time to write one of his most famous books, and he gets it published in Holland. Holland is very, very accepting of divergent points of view, and they are not very, very concerned about one religion over the other. So they're very, very welcoming and diversity embracing, I suppose, in that area. So he gets that. Gradually, the church, though, lightens up and they remove Galileo's book from the banned book list in 1757. All the way up in 1982, Pope John Paul II and the church acknowledge that Galileo was correct, and they admit that they were wrong. The church was wrong to convict him. So they basically agree with Galileo. The church, the pontiff, the pope agrees with Galileo that sometimes scripture can be misinterpreted and that science trumps scripture sometimes. So the church is moving a little bit and being more accepting of science. And that's kind of interesting how that plays out, especially with Galileo. Thanks.